Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. It's good to be with you here on this Friday evening. We're broadcasting, as we always do, from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. And welcome to our coverage of the very first orbital launch of 2026. Hope you all had a wonderful, safe, relaxing New Year's celebration, wherever and however you enjoyed it, whether that was staying up till the ball dropped or whatever object dropped in your community. I know there's a lot of fun ones out there. Or if you went ahead and called the night early and just enjoyed a good night's sleep on New Year's Eve heading into New Year's Day. Regardless, we're glad to have you with us here for the first of what is sure to be a very, very busy year in terms of orbital spaceflight. Kicking things off with the flight of a Falcon 9 rocket. This mission was originally planned to take flight back on the 27th, but because of a ground systems issue at Space Launch Complex 4 East, SpaceX ultimately ended up pushing the launch to tonight, where they are set to take flight on a southerly trajectory. Falcon 9 lifting off at the time that you see here on your screen, departing at 6:09 p.m. Pacific, 9:09 p.m. Eastern, 02:09 UTC for our friends joining around the world. Certainly appreciate the more than 1,200 of you who are watching along with us live tonight. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking that like button and sharing the stream, allowing some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage. Our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, is running the technical operations of the broadcast tonight. Being that this is a West Coast venture, our photographers have this particular launch off, but they'll be back in action before you know it. In fact, coming up over the weekend, as we have a flight of a Falcon 9 rocket getting ready to take off from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Eagle-eyed viewers may have seen the payload fairings, likely for that Starlink mission, cruising on by the VAB in our 24/7 live stream, Launchpad Live. If you're not following the fellows on X, now's a great time to do so. Kick off the year right. Make sure you're following one or all of your favorite launch photographers. Adam is at ABurn NYC. Michael is at MD Kane Jr. John is at John Pisani Photo. While you're there, be sure to follow Spaceflight Now, simply at Spaceflight Now. We're also on Blue Sky, Facebook, and Threads, those of you not on X. We're also joined in support with the stream by our moderators tonight. Rick Donner, Jeff Hansen, back with us to kick off the new year. If you do see any of the other mods cruise on in throughout the course of the coverage, be sure to give them a big old Spaceflight Now hello. You can make the mods' job that much easier just by following our live chat rules. We ask that you post your message in English so that the mods can respond as appropriate. Also, that you don't delve into topics of overt politics or religion and hold off from typing in all caps. Emojis are perfectly fine. We just ask that you don't create a huge block of them, i.e. like 5 or 6 rows of emoji. That way other people can have their message be seen and see messages from the rest of the folks in the chat. And last but certainly not least, we ask that you treat each other with the kindness and respect that you yourself would like to be treated. And we'll all get along swimmingly. Also joining us this evening, one of our channel members, Cumulus Granatus, who's able to help answer folks' questions in the chat as we roll on through the count. Speaking of channel members, we are once again joined at the beginning of the year by our wonderful channel member community who help support this and every other live launch opportunity. So big thanks to folks like Mike D, A.A. Gifford, Angela Cagle, Mrs. Ed 3, Rocket Girl, and many, many others. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, which is shop.spacelightnow.com. Access to member-only videos here on YouTube. access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here in Florida in 4K. Just under 25 minutes to go. About 10 minutes before now was when SpaceX started the tanking process for the Falcon 9 rocket. Not a live picture just yet, but here's the launch vehicle that will be flying here tonight. SpaceX is launching the mission with the Falcon booster flying for its 21st time, the 1081. We'll talk a little bit more about its flight history coming up here in just a little bit. Before that, though, let's go ahead and talk about the countdown timeline. These are the milestones that SpaceX has already stepped through on their way to being ready to launch the Falcon 9 rocket here at the pad. Of course, things kicked off at around T-minus 38 minutes is when the SpaceX launch director made the call on the start of prop load, which, as we just mentioned, began at T-minus 35 minutes with the loading of RP-1, a rocket-grade kerosene, on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages. At the same time, liquid oxygen began to flow on board the Falcon 9's first stage. Half an hour out is when SpaceX started to load a cryogenic helium onto the pressure vessels for the Falcon 9's first stage, and did the same regarding the second stage a few minutes after that. Helium is important because it's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. T-minus 23 minutes. Coming up next is when second stage RP-1 loading will wrap up. At T-minus 20 minutes and 50 seconds is the start of the strong back chill down. This is when SpaceX is thermally conditioning the feed lines there at the pad prior to loading liquid oxygen on board the rocket's upper stage. Had we eyes on the Falcon 9 live at this point of the count, we would be seeing the so-called big vent. Good visual indication that things are moving along on track and on schedule. Event wraps up just a little before second stage lock, so it begins at T-minus 16 minutes. Moving right along, T-minus 7 minutes is the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines at the base of the booster. SpaceX will flow a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, and that helps protect those 9 Merlin 1D engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during startup. A minute after that is when the first stage kerosene tank should be full. Then at T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the retraction strong back. First, the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings open up, and then the transporter erector, otherwise referred to as the strong back, well, that will recline about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket here at Vandenberg, and will stay in that position up to and through liftoff. 3 minutes out, the first stage LOX tank should be full. Same will be true on the second stage about a minute after that, at which point the Falcon 9 rocket will be fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds before takeoff, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks will be brought up to flight pressure. Here, recall that the Falcon 9 is entered into its automated startup to signal those events. T-minus 45 seconds is when the SpaceX launch director will indicate that they are in fact go for launch if all continues to proceed as expected. The engine ignition command will be issued at T-minus 3 seconds, and if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and there are no ground or weather obstructions, command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for that T0 liftoff. Once again, looking for our departure tonight at 6:09 p.m. Pacific, 9:09 p.m. Eastern, 02:09 UTC, or just about 20.5 minutes from now. Coming up on 20 minutes in the count. A launch at this time of day in California, at this time of year, would typically mean pretty good odds for seeing a nice jellyfish effect since the lighting would be right. However, we go ahead and take a look at view from space. This is a loop from NOAA's GOES West satellite. You can see quite a bit of cloud cover over the California coastline there. And it does look like, as we see that last little bit of light pull away from the screen, it does look like things are getting a little bit lighter as far as the cloud cover there. But as our understanding exists, it is still quite cloudy over Vandenberg. So hopefully that won't be an impediment to the launch, but it very well may be the showstopper for folks being able to see the launch with their own eyes. Hopefully you're in just the right spot and you'll be able to catch at least a glimpse of it as it makes its trip uphill. Just under 19 minutes to go. Want to welcome in a few new channel members. Not quite sure what to call this person. There's just an @ symbol with no discernible name that I can see, but got an unidentifiable new member as well as Suzanne Cox and Mr. Ado Jangles, or Bo Jangles. I suppose maybe Bojangles proper was taken, so 80 is the next best thing. Regardless, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. Also want to thank one of our channel members and moderators, Rick Donner, for gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships. Thank you, Rick. And to our 5 newest gifted members, welcome aboard to you as well. We're very glad to have you with us. And if you haven't already, be sure to thank Rick in the live chat. I hope you decide to stick around with channel memberships. Last little comment for now, and we'll pop back to the live chat here in just a bit. But want to thank Rick as well for a very generous $30 super chat. Really appreciate that, Rick. It says Will and the whole crew at our press HQ. Happy New Year. Have it on me tonight. Well, if the one is a nice cup of lemon tea, I certainly am having one on you, Rick. Appreciate it. Tonight's launch with a booster that's flying for its 21st time. Not quite enough to make it into Falcon 9 Frequent Flyers Club. As we start off the new year, here's just a quick reminder of where things currently stand for SpaceX. Looking to make a change to this list, or an addition to this list, I should say, within the next week or so, as B-1078 is looking to make its 25th flight, common appearance port of a launch of a batch of Starlink satellites. As far as where this Falcon 9 rocket is going to be flying, let's go ahead and take a quick peek at the trajectory here. Looking at a Google Earth overview of Space Launch Complex 4 East there at Vandenberg Space Force Base. After leaving the pad in just about 16 minutes, Falcon 9 rocket's going to be making a trip down south, ultimately sending the Cosmo-SkyMed second generation FM3 satellite into a circular sun-synchronous orbit. The booster B-1081, though, is going to be making a flip maneuver and heading back towards land for a touchdown at landing zone 4. SpaceX will also endeavor to recover the payload fairings on this mission, as it does with all of its Falcon flights. It's still on the path to certifying both its fairing halves and its first stage boosters for up to 40 missions. Once down in the waters of the Pacific Ocean, SpaceX will scoop these fairing halves up in a recovery vessel, bring them back through the port of Long Beach, then off to SpaceX facilities where they will be refurbished and turned around for future missions. Just about 14 and a half minutes to go here before we get live views of the Falcon 9 rocket there at Space Launch Complex 4 East. Let's talk a little bit about the payload that's on board. Here's an image on the right-hand side of the Cosmo-SkyMed second generation satellite before it was encapsulated inside Falcon 9 payload fairings. And there's the SpaceX designed mission patch on the left. There's another view of the satellite with the encapsulation teams. Satellite was manufactured by Thales Space on behalf of the Italian Space Agency and the Italian Defense Ministry. This Earth observation constellation is jointly owned in a civil capacity as well as by the military there in Italy. This is the third, as the name of FM3 or Flight Model 3 would suggest, the third of the second generation of these satellites that is going to be heading into low Earth orbit. Previous two satellites, one launched by a Russian Soyuz rocket and the other by a different Falcon 9. There are currently as well two first generation of these Cosmo-SkyMed satellites operating in orbit right now. The spacecraft clocking in a weight of about 1,700 kilograms or a little more than 3,700 pounds. And they have a roughly 5-year lifespan. Their imaging capability comes through their use of synthetic aperture radar, or SAR, operating in X-band. That allows them to capture imagery regardless of the presence of cloud cover or peering into darkness. And it looks like we do have our views of the Falcon 9 rocket, so let's go ahead and bring those in here. As you can see, there's wonderfully no fog there at Vandenberg, but again, folks still may not be able to see it once it takes flight because of the level of clouds here. SpaceX commentator noting that weather is a watch item, but may be deemed to be acceptable. Right now, SpaceX is in a pre-produced video from the government of Italy. So let's do something similar and let's roll the tape on this video produced by Talzalania Space, giving you an overview of this satellite. And there's a little overview of the Cosmo-SkyMed constellation. SpaceX should be bringing back views of the Falcon 9 here momentarily, and of course we'll reintroduce those as soon as they're available. Taking the time to talk about the parts of the rocket while SpaceX is throwing up some graphics here. Just under 7 minutes as well. The chill down of the 9 Merlin engines is getting underway. Payload fairings at the top of the rocket stand at 13.1 meters or 43 feet in height. One of the fairing halves is flying for its 23rd time, the other for its second. The fairing halves are made up of a carbon composite material as well. And again, they'll be recovered a little bit further downrange along the track. And this is a live view of the satellite. Stage 1 fuel loading is complete as well. The upper stage of the Falcon 9 rocket, powered by a single modified Merlin engine, called a Merlin vacuum engine, as you can see on the screen. It produces more than 220,500 pounds of thrust. With this particular flight, there will be just one burn of the upper stage engine before deployment of the Cosmo-SkyMed satellite. Coming up on 5.5 minutes remaining in the count. And about a minute left before team start the prep work for the strong back retract.
Back retract has started.
As you just heard, the retraction of the strong back is now in motion. First, we'll see the clamp arms beneath the payload fairings open up, as you can see right now. And then the large truss structure behind the rocket from this camera's vantage point will recline about 13 degrees. And here at Vandenberg, following this reclining, it'll stay in that position up to and through liftoff. As you're watching the retraction of the strong back, it's a good opportunity to get a little glimpse of the wind levels there at the pad, just watching the flow of the LOX vapor around the upper stage. Three and a half minutes now remaining. In less than 30 seconds, there should be a call that the first stage liquid oxygen tank should have reached flight levels.
Load is complete.
With that good call out, we should hear a similar call regarding liquid oxygen levels on the second stage. As we approach that call, I want to thank the more than 5,700 of you who are with us at the start of the year for orbital launches. Also, thanks to Lusosos for a $10 super chat, saying thanks for always great coverage. So appreciate what you do. Thank you for the kind words and for the support tonight. Also, thanks to Jeff Hansen, one of our moderators, for also a $10 super chat, who says, go Vandy, go SpaceX, go Falcon 9, go Cosmo-SkyMed, Godspeed 1081. And quickly before that second stage LOX call, K2 Hat with a $5 super chat, saying, Happy New Year from Mico, Florida. Thanks for the coverage.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
And with that call, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. Momentarily, we'll see some venting from the strong back. There it goes. There's the ground gas closeouts. SpaceX is releasing the remaining liquid oxygen from the feed lines there at the pad. In about 20 seconds, we should hear confirmation that the rocket has entered into its automated startup sequence.
The 9 is in startup.
And with that confirmation, we are just awaiting the SpaceX launch director to confirm that they are go for launch.
Please go for launch.
And with that, SpaceX is ready and just a little more than half a minute away from their first launch of the year. We're going to step back on our commentary, listen along with you, and join you on the other side.
3 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Liftoff of Falcon 9. Go SpaceX, go Cosmo. Vehicle is pitching downrange. Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
At 2 plus 30 seconds into flight, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. We're currently throttling down to prepare for max Q, the point of maximum aerodynamic stresses on the vehicle. Max Q is reached when the air density of the atmosphere decreases faster than the increasing speed of the rocket.
Falcon 9 is supersonic. Q.
And there you heard max Q. From here on, even though velocity is rapidly increasing, the atmospheric density is decreasing, resulting in less loads on Falcon 9. Now we have several events coming up in quick succession, starting with MECO, stage separation, stage 1 flip, second engine start, or SES1, the boost back burn, and fairing deploy.
Cutoff. Separation confirmed. Back ignition.
And there you heard and saw those 6 events that happened back to back, including main engine cutoff, stage separation, stage 1 flip, second engine start 1, and the boost back burn and fairing separation. The next major milestone coming up is entry burn on our Falcon 9 first stage, which is scheduled to occur just after the T plus 6 minute mark.
Confirmed.
The entry burn is used to slow the first stage as it heads towards landing zone 4.
So far, nominal trajectories for both the first and second stages. You can see the hypersonic grid fins deploying on the booster. As the SpaceX commentator noted, the entry burn is set to begin in a little past 6.5 minutes into this flight, lasting less than 30 seconds in duration. Nice view of the Cosmo-SkyMed satellite there on the right-hand side of the screen. You heard the call out, but didn't see the fairings separate. Again, SpaceX will recover those fairing halves and refly them on a future mission. SpaceX already has a series of Starlink missions lined up to follow this flight, as well as a customer rideshare mission called Twilight coming up from Vandenberg. So kicking things off with a busy start to the new year. And of course, next month, SpaceX is scheduled to launch the Crew 12 mission to the International Space Station as well. That's set to launch no earlier than February 15th. Just about a minute away now from the start of the entry burn. You're looking up through the inner stage there on the left-hand side of your screen. This will be a fairly short mission from liftoff to deployment. According to the SpaceX timeline, the Cosmo-SkyMed satellite should separate from the upper stage less than 13 minutes post liftoff. Less than 30 seconds to the start of the entry burn. Those little puffs of white that you're seeing in between the grid fins, those are the cold gas thrusters that help the booster adjust its attitude or positioning. Coming up to that start of the entry burn. Let's listen in.
You want entry burn startup?
And there was the call out for entry burn startup on the Falcon 9 first stage. This burn is set to last about 30 seconds and again is slowing down the vehicle in preparation for its final burn and landing.
You want entry burn shut down?
And with the conclusion of the entry burn, coming up next will be the start of the single engine landing burn set to begin in roughly 30 seconds. And that'll take B-1081 all the way down to what will hopefully be a soft landing over at landing zone 4.
Transonic. Stage 1 landing burn.
And there you heard the call out for landing burn start on the Falcon 9 first stage. Again, this is the final burn that this booster will execute before landing.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
And as you saw and probably heard, we had a successful first stage landing. Coming up next, we are expecting the shutdown of the second stage MVAC engine. This is known as second engine cutoff 1 or SECO 1.
That good landing at landing zone 4 we just saw represented the 31st time that SpaceX has recovered a booster there. Roughly a minute remaining before the conclusion of the burn of the upper stage engine. Satellite set to deploy.
Now, if you're just joining us today, we have had a successful launch and landing of our first stage Falcon 9 booster. This is for the Cosmo-SkyMed FM3 mission. Coming up in about 20 seconds, we have
2 FTS
SECO
sustained.
1 or second engine cutoff 1.
Stage 2 has entered terminal guidance. Back shutdown.
And there you heard a successful cutoff of our second stage engine and waiting for confirmation of good orbit.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And there we heard the call out for good orbit.
And with the confirmation of a nominal orbit insertion, the deployment of the satellite is coming up next here in less than 2 minutes. Coming up on 12.5 minutes post liftoff and just about 30 seconds remaining before deployment of the satellite there on your screen.
Load separation confirmed.
And a successfully deployment of Cosmo-SkyMed. And that brings us to the end of our live mission coverage. We would like to thank the Italian Space Agency for entrusting us with their spacecraft today. And we also want to say thank you to the Range and Federal Aviation Administration for their support, and to you, our viewers. Thank you again for joining us for our first mission of 2026. Be sure to check out SpaceX.com/launches for the most up-to-date information on upcoming launches, and follow us at SpaceX on X. From all of us here at SpaceX, wishing you...
And with the successful deployment of the Cosmo-SkyMed spacecraft, that'll go ahead and just about do things for us here on our coverage. But before we wrap things up, I want to thank a few more folks for your support, and then of course turn to our mission stats as they currently stand fresh for the new year. I want to thank Astro Joe, one of our channel members and moderators, for being a member with us now for 42 months, saying the answer to life, the universe, and everything. 42. I'm Lita, another channel member with our $5 super chat. Thank you, Lita. Who says, hope all the Spaceflight Now family had a safe and happy new year. Looking forward to a great year with you guys. Likewise. Dib More Free with a $5 super chat as well, the channel member. Thank you, Spaceflight Now, for coverage. Thank you for your support, Deb. And want to thank both Psychonaut69 and Graveyard Charm for gifting a total of 6 Spaceflight Now memberships. Really appreciate that for the both of you. And to our 6 newest channel members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. Be sure to thank Psychonaut and Graveyard Charm for the memberships. We hope you decide to stick around beyond the month you were just gifted. Let's go ahead and turn next to our mission stats as they currently stand. With a good liftoff and landing of the Falcon 9 rocket, that wraps up the 21st flight for the booster with the tail number 1081. This was SpaceX's 583rd Falcon 9 launch to date, the first Falcon 9 rocket launch of the year. This was SpaceX's 166th orbital launch within the last 365 days, though. The 171st orbital launch for SpaceX from Space Launch Complex 4 East, and the 240th overall orbital launch from this pad as well. Here's a look at the bar chart of the Falcon family of rockets and their launches so far. First one on the board for the new year. Moving along to some recovery stats. This was the 31st landing at Landing Zone 4 to date. The 100th SpaceX landing on land, as a matter of fact. This was the company's 554th Falcon booster landing and the 555th overall landing of an orbital class rocket, in addition to the flight of New Glenn with its booster. Never tell me the odds. And with some industry stats, this was the first orbital launch from California this year. Going to be quite repetitive, given this is the first one of everything. First launch from U.S. soil, the first launch from U.S. rocket company, first launch around the globe in this calendar year. Thankfully, so far, no orbital mishaps. Starting the year off strong with our first launch, and the U.S. taking an early lead on the pie chart here, which will, of course, only get much more populated as the days, weeks, and months roll on. And with that, that's going to go ahead and do it for us. And we hope you all had a wonderful time here in our first stream of 2026. We hope to see you back here in the very not too distant future as SpaceX is tracking towards the launch of their next Falcon 9 rocket, hitting right at midnight Saturday going into Sunday here on the East Coast, the flight of the Starlink 6-88 mission, looking to take off there at the midnight hour, sending another 29 Starlink V2 Mini optimized satellites into orbit. We'll talk a lot more about how SpaceX has advanced its Starlink constellation in 2025 during our coverage then. This will also be the first flight for a new booster for SpaceX. So, rare debut of a Falcon 9 first stage, as the company now renowned for its reuse still does have to introduce new boosters every now and again, keep the fleet fresh. This booster is believed to be 1101 that is making its debut. So if you haven't already, now's a great time to hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, ring that bell. That way you'll be alerted when we do start our live coverage for the next launch and everyone after that. I want to thank our Spacefly Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the broadcast this evening. Big thanks to our moderators in the chat, to Jeff Hansen, Rick Donner, and Astro Joe for hanging out with us tonight, and to channel member Cumulus Granadas for helping answer folks' questions in the chat as well. Most importantly, though, thanks to you for wherever you've been watching from. One down. We'll see how many left to go. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others. Enjoy the start of the weekend, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye, and Happy New Year.